Back to Math with Miss Swartz. Today we are going to look at something a little bit different than we were looking at yesterday. We need to understand congruent figures if we're going to work with any type of transformation over the next couple days. Congruent figures are going to kind of be our telling point of what we're going to be doing with our transformation. So we have to understand what are congruent figures and how can we identify, well, really any type of congruent figure, not just congruent triangles. So that's our essential question. How can we identify? So first of all, you need to write down a good definition here for congruent figures. So go ahead and write this down. Congruent figures are figures that have the same size and same shape. So below we have congruent triangles here. It says matching angles are called corresponding angles. So make sure you also have this written down. And matching sides are also called corresponding sides. That makes sense. Pretty logical. So congruent figures have the same size and the same shape. Eventually we'll talk about figures that are proportional, not necessarily congruent, but today we're focusing on congruent figures. So this should be pretty simple. We just have to determine whether the triangles are congruent or not. So if we look at the first one, with number 1, are these triangles the same size and the same shape? Nope. So they are not congruent. If you look at number 2, again, are they the same size, same shape? No, so they are not congruent. 3, it looks like we're getting closer, but they are. This one is a little bit smaller than this one. So again, not congruent. Finally, number 4, if we had just turned this one around and rotated it, it looks like they're about the same size and the same shape. So we finally have a congruent figure on this slide. Okay, so I'm not necessarily asking you to write those examples down, just because you would have to draw the triangles to understand what is what. So just understand what we did there, why we picked congruent or not congruent. Again, we're doing the same thing. Are these triangles congruent or not congruent? So here, if we look, are these going to be the same size? Not quite. This one looks a little bit smaller, so but over here on 6, it looks like those are going to be the exact same size. They already have the same shape, so these are congruent. Okay, so we're going to focus in on the sides and the angles. Okay, if we want to identify congruent figures, we can see if those angles, 2 figures are congruent when corresponding angles and corresponding sides are congruent. Okay, so we're going to start determining whether figures are congruent, and then we're going to be listing the angles that are corresponding and the sides that are corresponding. So that obviously takes a little bit more time. So I am going to have you draw these next couple examples and write these out with me. Make sure that you have that one written down there. Okay, it says name the figures are congruent, so it already tells us that up front. Name the corresponding angles and the corresponding sides. Okay, so we want to match up the angles with the angle from the other figure that it's corresponding with, and the sides as well. So we're going to list all of them. We'll start with the angles. So angle A and this squiggly line here means corresponds with angle W. Then angle D corresponds with angle Z. And angle C corresponds with angle Y. And angle B corresponds with angle X. So we got all the angles. Now we just need all the sides. So side length AD is going to correspond with side length WZ. So you got to make sure if you call it AD, it's got to be WZ here. So those angles should match up as well. So side length DC should correspond with side length ZY. And side length CB should correspond with side length YX. If you did BC, then you could say XY, but you gotta stay consistent. And then side length, whoops, sorry about that, AB, notice I did AB instead of BA, corresponds with WX. So you got to match up the angles when you're talking about the sides. So if I say AD, it's got to be WZ. If I were to say DA, it would have to be ZW. So I want you to draw these and make sure you have them written out. Okay, next example I want you to try on your own. You're going to name the corresponding angles and the corresponding sides. So this is going to be expected to be in your notes. So go ahead and try to draw these as best you can. And then give me the corresponding angles, corresponding sides. So if you could have it nicely written out so that we could find these easy. All right, last one we'll do together. Since we know that these are congruent, we can use the information that we have to help us find missing side lengths. So it says, what is the length of side JM? Well, JM is here, but we don't know that there, but we have the trapezoids ABCD and JKLM are congruent. Okay, so we have corresponding sides. So the corresponding side for this trapezoid would be here. JM is going to match up with AD, so the length is going to be 10 feet. It says, what's the perimeter of JKLM? Well, same concept. All of these sides are going to be corresponding, so we can say this is 8 feet, this is 8 feet, this is 6 feet. So we could just add 6 plus 8 plus 8 plus 10. Okay, we get 6 plus 26, and we get 32 feet. So we can use our information to help us find missing lengths or angles even. Okay, that's all we have for you today. Your homework will be given to you once you get your notes checked. Make sure that you have this one as well in your notes. Just draw those pictures. It shouldn't take you too long to draw those. Otherwise, should be good to go. Have a wonderful day.